So good morning, everyone. This is the meeting of the Technical Review Committee, Town of South Kingstown, scheduled for Wednesday, January 12th, 2022 at 9 a.m. Just bear with us, it's 9:05 a.m. We were getting everybody on board with regards to our Zoom meeting. We have 3 agenda items today. Our first agenda item is call to order, which I will call this meeting to order. I will note the individuals in attendance. We have Mary Talbot representing the Conservation Commission, Jamie Gorman from the building officials, John Schock, Director of Public Service, Rich Bourbonnais, Town Engineer from Department of Public Service. We have Chris Henner as our Fire Marshal. We also have Maria Mack representing the Planning Board. Staff, we have Jay Parker from the Planning Department and Brian Wagner from the Planning Department. And again, I'm Jamie Rabbit, Director of Planning and the Chair of the Technical Review Committee. Agenda item B is approval of minutes from December 8th, 2021. I would entertain a motion.
Move approval.
I'll second that, Jamie.
Is there any discussion on the motion to approve the December 8th meeting minutes? Hearing none, in favor of approving the minutes, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any abstentions? Hearing none, motion to approve the meeting minutes of December 8th, 2021 passes. Agenda item C, TRC minor review. Development plan review, JSC Management Group, Burger King, construction of a new secondary drive-through lane with menu board located at 104 126 Old Tower Hill Road, AP 57-2, lot 67, JSC Management Group. Applicant is Ellie and Rob Realty, owner. So Jay, I believe we have some of those applicants' representatives in the attendees list. If you can just raise your hand and we'll bring you into the meeting.
Should be coming over in a second, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Jay.
Good morning, Todd. Is there any other team members that you'd like to have brought in?
I don't know if you had a chance to bring in Steve LaFond.
I'm on here.
Okay. No, I think just myself and Steve LaFond, can handle the presentation. We have another individual from my office, Sky, but she'll just be listening in.
Okay, Todd, if you want to run through changes you looked at based on your revised submission, that would be appreciated.
Sure. So again, based on the discussions that were had at the December 8th meeting, Steve LaFond of JSC was in attendance at that meeting, and he and I have talked, and certainly I've talked with some of the different individuals at the town. We understood there was some additional concerns, and we have obviously resubmitted some plans with hopefully addressing those concerns. In kind of the bigger ticket items, I guess, just in order of my cover letter that I had submitted. First one was kind of with respect to stormwater. And it looks like you have the plans up in front of you. If you wanted to specifically flip to C3, which should be the next sheet, I believe. Yeah, so basically, we talked with the town engineer offline and had some discussions to verify exactly what he was looking for. And our understanding was that he's just looking for kind of a shallow area that can potentially, slow the water down a little bit, have a little bit of a detention function, but perhaps also do some infiltration. So we provided, we'll call it a bioretention area, kind of in the rear there. Water would, in essence, flow into that lawn island on the north corner, and it would kind of settle in that low depression area. And as that water level continued to rise, it would actually just kind of outflow, overland flow into the back into the parking lot at the south end. So again, it's just a small little depression area. The intent would be to kind of slow that water down, give it some time to settle out some of the sediments, and reduce the peak runoff there. We've also got some plantings in there if you wanted to take a peek at that on C5, which would be the next sheet. And again, that's just to uptake some of those nutrients. I believe the last conversation I had with the town engineer, he was generally satisfied. I believe he's on this meeting right now, and certainly if we want to talk about this particular item right now, we can, or we can move on to the others.
Rich, do you have any additional insight or input based on
No, only that we talked about it, and I think that the grades seem to work pretty well. Once they had the spot, they showed some of the spot grades in that parking area there, and it just seems to work out well. I thought it's going to be a nice addition. So that's all I have. I'm generally satisfied, as he notes.
I have a couple of questions if we're talking about the plantings in the rear, since I'm new to this project. Wanting to get an idea, I did not see any documentation from what I was given of the amount of impervious surface that has been increased or decreased. And in relation to that, what landscaping has been removed and where, and what it has been replaced with. So, and I have a couple comments on that, but obviously I need more information to make better informed comments.
So if I can just respond to that, on the site plan sheet C2, we have a little bit of a site data table there, and it does indicate kind of the existing impervious and the proposed impervious. And we've got it shown in acreage, which may not be the best way to show it, but we are decreasing the impervious area out there. Again, so it's approximately 0.71 acres today. And, by the time the project is done, we'll be at roughly 0.68 acres. So the exact square footage, I'd have to go back and calculate that. So it's not a huge change, but it certainly is an improvement, which would result in, less stormwater, less runoff. And again, on top of that, adding in this bioretention would, again, reduce that or slow that flow down as well.
And you're not,
so if that answers,
you're not changing the streetscape plantings adjacent to Old Tower Hill Road, correct? That remains the same.
So that's kind of, again, one of the next big topics, and then I can go right into that if you guys would like. It was heard loud and clear at the last meeting that what we had previously shown was not acceptable. And let me take a step back, kind of in history, and talking with JSC. My understanding is prior to them acquiring this particular property, the former occupant had actually, sounds like chopped down, removed 90% of the landscaping. I believe that JSC may have contributed to that once they took over the property. I want to say they might have removed 4 trees, if my understanding is correct. But so we kind of, when JSC got this property, I think they kind of stepped into a little bit of a mess to begin with. And again, we had showed just a couple minor additions last meeting. So after talking with some of the town folk, and again, Steve LaFond, what we've proposed at this point is to, and again, if you look at the landscaping plan, which would be sheet C5, it doesn't even show it fully on here, but there's a note in here, and we are proposing to replant any of the missing landscaping we're proposing to replant that from that 2000 plan that was approved. And that would include, everything on site. If there's still an existing tree or bush, that was original, the plan would be to keep that as is. But again, we would supplement anything that was removed or is dead at this point in time. In addition to that, rather than planting them at the size that was indicated back in 2000, JSC has agreed to upsize those by, for the trees, I should say, by a half an inch.
Yeah,
in addition-
sorry, I didn't mean to chuckle. So if a 1-inch caliber tree was called for, you're gonna graciously go up to 1.5 inches?
That's correct. That's the proposal right now. And again, I would just,
How about, Todd, we'll just start 2.5 to 3-inch caliber at a minimum to start the discussion on all deciduous trees.
yeah, and I believe if I took a look at the plan back from 2000, I don't believe there was anything that was under 2 inches, if I'm not mistaken. And I can go back and, we can.
And that's DBH, diameter breast height, not root ball.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Diameter breast height.
Yep.
So not as nursery stock, measured as an urban forester in the field or an urban planter in the field.
And some of the previous shrub sizes were fairly small as well. 3 gallon. And I think you're going to want to have a look at, yeah, I did try to look at this and increase it in size so it was legible. And I do recall that you had, if the calorie pairs have been cut down, you're going to want to replace them with something else because they're not a species that holds up terribly well. Most of the others were fine, but on your new plan, you have euonymus, common name is burning bush, and it's considered an invasive, so you want to substitute something for that. And again, you'll hear more at the planning board, but these are just sort of initial thoughts from looking at what I have before me. It doesn't, I really need to go back out and look at the site and see what it looks like now comparatively.
Yeah, and I guess what I would add to that is, again, if there's certainly a species that is no longer desirable, I don't think that's an issue swapping that out if there's something that you guys see and would like differently.
Yeah, you had at one point, you did have dwarf Alberta spruce on site, which can be a great landscape plant, but it's very slow growing in nature. But we definitely will have a look at that and see what. So just to clarify, you are planning on replanting the species that were in the original plan in addition to this, what we see in front of us?
That's correct. Yeah. So again, since the thought was, and again, talking with different members of town staff, the thought was, if you guys had previously approved that plan and you were happy with it, to just, why recreate the wheel at this point? So just to replant those existing types of plants, shrubbery, and trees out there. And again, what you see in front of you, right? Well, sorry, my screen. If you look at that C5 plan, we've added some new plantings, obviously in the back. The alignment of those curbs isn't the same as the original plan. So you can see we've added quite a bit of landscaping in the rear as well. So at this point in time, I think JSC has done a good job in understanding what the town is looking for and trying to do their best. And again, I hope that the town can somewhat appreciate that JSC kind of walked into a mess, and they're willing to try to make the board happy here as best as they can. So
have you thought about on the left hand side of this screen, the section A,
the Long Island?
Yes. Have you thought at all about, given the fact that your drive up traffic has increased and you certainly have plenty of parking, have you thought about eliminating those, what is it, 8, 10 spaces, just beyond that section along the roadway to create a nicer view shed. That's one of the things that the town is thinking about for this area overall, and has been the subject of a few studies in the past, and there will be a future one done of this, but just thinking about, trying to preserve the look and the feel from the road so that you don't see a bunch of cars as you walk or drive by.
Are you referring to the vehicles that would be parked, I guess, perpendicular to Old
Yes,
Tower Hill Road?
exactly.
Kind of in front?
Yeah.
We have not considered that, yet. At this point, we've reduced a couple spots just based on the alignment and the changes that we're making here. So we weren't necessarily planning on doing any work up front. The scope of the work is kind of, at this point in time, in the rear of the property, and that's kind of where we were focusing our efforts, and again, trying to beautify that as much as possible. But again, looking at plantings for the rest of the site as well. But the intent right now would be to maintain that parking in the front.
Maria, you can take a sec. Jay, can you let me share my screen? And thank you.
Oh,
So to Maria Mack's point, Todd, that's what it used to look like. You
Yep.
removed Japanese maples that have been in the ground for almost 20 years. And when did JSC acquire the property?
Steve, I don't know if you have that off the top of your head. They did a major acquire. Somewhere it was, I want to say it was right before COVID or literally right after COVID. So in the very first COVID, so that would have been February or March of 2020. Is that right? Or 2019? I can't recall at this point. But it was literally, he did the deal, I think it was days after COVID was announced and everything shut down.
But again, there you'll see, how mature that landscaping was. You'll see basically a 18 to 20 inch caliper tree in the front. So again, as you look at plant sizes, you can purchase those red maples and replace them in kind at that size. I'm not necessarily suggesting that, but I think you're somewhere between that and coming back at 1 or 2 inch caliber for those. Those are 4 substantial specimen Japanese maples that were removed. And actually, in reality, looking at the removal, it appears they were dug, not cut. Because if a landscaper was halfway intelligent, he would have realized the value of those and not cut them, dug them up, and resold them. Because those are in excess of $2,000 a piece on the retail market.
Mm-hmm.
So again, understanding that your client may have inherited this site, this is what the community's expectations have been, and you've inherited that. So.
Understood.
and Jamie, the original approval, the original landscape plan that was approved, it was approved at 3 inch caliper back in 2001 or 2000 rather.
So again, if we make that switch potentially to DBH, diameter breast height, again, we can continue that conversation at the planning board level. But we want to, from my perspective as the director of planning, I wanted to make sure we're on the same page with regards to plant replacement. Thank you, Todd.
Yep.
Mr. Schock.
I was just looking at GIS and I see that it looks like, of course, we don't know when, but spring of 2020 aerials show the trees there, but the 2021s don't. So again, I think it's immaterial who took them down, but I agree they need to be as robust as possible, try to replicate what was there. Other than that, I don't have any comments.
Thank you, John. Chris, anything on the fire side?
No, I have nothing. Jamie, thanks.
Jamie Gorman?
In regard to the signage that was included in the documentation, I just wanted to note that that'll be reviewed separately under a sign permit, but the limit to the freestanding directional signs is 4 square feet. And I believe they're marked, or the dimensions on here are 6 square feet. So just modify those to stay within the 4. And I just wanted to bring up that provided this, is approved at the planning board, it would then be subject to a special use permit to the zoning, from the zoning board of review. So application after that would need to be made.
All right, I'm gonna go back to share my screen for a moment. I know we talked about it last month briefly. Bear with me. And I noticed you did propose to change
Is that the traffic flow?
Yeah, just bear with me. I have a slide on that one.
Yep.
So I did notice you have a one-way pattern now that you're showing. Can everybody see that screen? Okay, good.
Yep.
So again, you had a two-way pattern that was existing on the site as you come in off of Tower Hill Road. You're now proposing to do one way. Todd, it wasn't clear on the plans. Those are going to be pavement markings, those one-way arrows
Yeah, you're talking in front of the building?
in front of the building, and as we head, east and then north and then west again.
Correct. That would just be, the typical pavement striping and, again, heard the concerns of the town and brought those back to the client and they had no issue changing that to the one-way circulation.
Okay. Based on that, I'd recommend that based on the drawing, you have 2 do not enter signs on the,
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. I can't recall what we added there. We've got, let's see, J6, J3. J6.
you added
Yeah,
a
we've
drive-through
added
sign.
We've added an entrance sign and an exit only sign. But yeah, if you want to do not enter signs, we can certainly add those as well. That wouldn't be an issue.
And then since you have this one-way pattern, I think it's critical to define that main drive aisle common to the 2 properties, being the car dealership and Burger King. Again,
Yep.
you'll see my pavement markings and line striping suggestions.
Okay.
So again, defining your turning movements and stop control associated with Burger King. And then also as that drive aisle heads northerly, you would have potentially a conflict with that row of cars that you're showing. So
Yeah, and let me clarify what those cars were. We just we had noticed that the dealership at some point, based on some Google images and whatnot, had quite a bit of car storage up there, and so we were just trying to emulate what might be a realistic condition there. So again, I see what you've got on your screen there as far as keeping that area open and able to travel to, and we'll have to talk with the property owner and just see what their plans are for the vehicles there and notify them that, ideally we don't have any storage in that location.
okay, and again, I will share this detail with you.
I would appreciate that.
Does anyone else have anything? Mary, I didn't intend to skip you, but do you have anything, insight or comments?
The only comments are, I don't think we should put,
Mary, I can't hear you.
okay. How about now?
Now we can hear, yep, we can hear you clearly now.
Okay, just that, he's got some invasive species plants listed in his new planning plan, and the Bradford pear is now not really acceptable because it tends to like spread everywhere also. And if you could just revise those and go with the original plans, those original plants look very good. The red maples in the, before they were removed.
Thank you, Mary.
I have a general question. I know that the applicant stated that there would be a slight reduction in impervious area. Is there anything either in this plan or that can be improved upon this plan that would help the overall stormwater situation for the area as a whole? I understand we're just talking about this site, but is there anything further that can be done on this site to help mitigate the situation that we are in terms of TMDL?
Well, I would just, again, remind the board that, we have incorporated a bioretention area in the rear. As currently it exists, the area, the landscaped areas are just that, they're higher grass areas. In this case, we have, I don't know what kind of square footage it would be, but it's it's an area to detain the water temporarily. It would infiltrate some of the water. I can't say how much, probably not a lot. And it would also offer, an area to remove some of the sediment and, any salts or anything from the stormwater runoff of the parking lot. So there is definitely an improvement beyond the addition or the lack of impervious area.
Do you have a slope or a depth on that bioretention area?
Yeah, I think if you go to Plan C3, we've got a detail kind of at the bottom there, or a section, I should say. And if I recall correctly, I want to say we've got it at a depth of a ponding depth of 8 inches would be the max ponding until it overflows. And that was something that, again, myself and the engineer kind of talked about and came up to something that we felt made sense in this situation.
And how effective do you think it will be initially, given the fact that you are putting seed in rather than at least plugs or plantings of any particular size?
Well, again, in my mind, this is still going to serve as an area to, again, take out some of the sediments that may be collected from the parking lot. So I think it will function fine for that, regardless of, if we have the seed mix there or not. We are putting some plantings in the area on the side slope and kind of the area there to help that nutrient uptake. And again, we would, as noted there, we would seed it. I think the typical details, and Rich and I kind of discussed a little bit, would show that as kind of a mulch area. And in my experience, we've had issues with mulch for a variety of reasons. Number one, it can tend to float. It could, make a mess on the parking lot. And in this case, in my opinion, I would rather have something like a seed mix or something that would, again, kind of absorb a little bit better than your typical mulch there. So, again, I think it has a function. These type of things are installed all over, and how well they work in general, I can't say exactly, but this is generally designed in accordance with, with the guidelines. So the area is not huge, but it's the only area that we really have the ability to incorporate something like this. So we've done the best we can and kind of maxed it out, so to speak.
Oh, I definitely agree that having the bioretention area is much better than putting down mulch. It's just actually the way that you will go about it may determine its both initial and long-term effectiveness. That's why I asked about seed mix versus small plants.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just add something to that though, Maria, that it's the bioretention soil that's really doing the trick for us. These retention systems, these systems will actually function with mulch or whatever it is. And in fact, even the plant material, doesn't necessarily have as much effect. Sometimes we'll get more volume and then we'll plant it with grass rather than plant material, because when you have a deeper system, you the depth of the volume, the water is just too much for plant material. So we'll often use grass for that. The sand filters function perfectly fine, and there's sand at the surface. Sometimes you'll take a sand filter and you'll actually plant grass at the surface just because of appearance, but that's really the only reason. The sand is actually what is the medium that will clean the water. In this case, it's a bioretention soil. That's going to be what cleans the water, whether it's grass or whether it's mulch or not. Even over time, if this tends to be a little bit deteriorated at the surface, they'll probably go in and mulch it or something just to clean it up, because it'll appear lousy looking. But even if that happens, it's still going to have the same function. It's the soil that's the important thing. And this kind of came up. I think I'll give Susan a little bit of credit on this, because this we were actually satisfied with even just eliminating impervious conditions in this watershed. Any elimination of impervious conditions is going to help. But Susan, I think, brought up the fact that we had a little bit of area here and we proposed something. So I'm just grateful that we do have a water quality structure, in addition to getting an elimination of impervious material. That doesn't always happen.
Well, I think it's a good idea. I think that having the plantings helps to serve a dual purpose in an area that has a lot of asphalt, so that you have the functionality of the infiltration and then you have the aesthetics of the plantings. That's why these bioretention areas have become more popular. I was under the impression, though, that most of the ones that function well give them a little bit of a head start using at least small plants rather than seeds. So I guess I'd be looking for more information on the effectiveness of that as well. And it's definitely going to be better than mulch or even just plain grass because of that dual effort.
Yeah, again, with water quality structures, when you lose volume, you're losing volume water quality. And when you plant it, you lose volume. You can't have greater than, usually it's that 10 to 8 inch depth of total storage volume that you need to have in order to have plants in it. So just again, they function differently and they're all kind of different. But in this case, again, it's an amenity to the site. I think it'll work fine.
Okay, listening to everyone and trying to look at a summary of things, I see 3 kind of remaining items that potentially require some revisions and continued discussion with staff as it moves on to the planning board. Item number 1 being landowner needs and facility needs to solidify the landscaping caliper as it relates to the material that was removed, and beginning that discussion with a minimum caliper size of 3.5 inches diameter breast height with regards to the deciduous tree material. Item number 2 would be to modify the traffic circulation plan as it relates to additional pavement markings and signage. And item number 3 would be to clarify the signage number and size as it relates to the zoning regulations, and that be done in consultation with the zoning and planning departments. Was there anything that I potentially missed in the conversations and discussions? I know both Jay and Brian as department staff listen diligently. Jay, Brian, do you feel that's a summary of what was discussed?
Yeah, this is Jay Parker. Previously, the three discussion topics at the last meeting was the bioretention drainage feature, which we've discussed, landscaping plan, which was discussed, and traffic circulation. So provided everyone is satisfied, those were the three previous items that were of importance to the TRC last month.
And I agree with Jay. I think you've outlined everything that was discussed today. The only thing I'm still seeing is potential circulation issues with an excessive amount of stacking into the overall site flow. But I don't know whether that's a concern that will never come to anything, because that would be an awful lot of stacking, and it may be something that just never happens.
And Brian, to your point, again, there's potential for some striping in that back corner to make sure that there's a clear bypass lane.
Yeah,
One-way circulation pattern, but
it could probably benefit from maybe some additional striping at the beginning of the left-hand lane at the north end of the island, and maybe coming around the corner from the main parking area, so that people stay to the left-hand side and make sure the right side stays free for vehicles exiting the site.
okay, with 3 items, would anyone like to make a motion?
Jamie, just to clarify, this would be a motion to move it to the planning board with the,
Motion to make a favorable recommendation to the planning board contingent upon the 3 items being addressed by the applicant.
I'll make that motion to approve.
Here a
Those
second?
can you just recap those 3 items just for everybody's edification?
Yep. To solidify the landscaping as it relates to caliper size so that it represents the material that was removed, and beginning that discussion with a minimum caliper size on deciduous trees of 3.5 inches diameter breast height. To modify the traffic circulation plan with additional pavement markings and signage as discussed. Item 3, to clarify the signage size associated with the site and to modify that signage size in a manner that is consistent with the zoning regulations in consultation with the zoning department and planning department.
So I'll second that motion.
Thank you, John. Is there any discussion on the motion?
I just want to mention that at the planning board level, there will probably be additional questions relative to probably landscaping and circulation as far as deliveries, getting large trucks in and out of there. I'm assuming that may have been part of an earlier discussion at a previous TRC, but just so that the applicant is well aware.
Thank you, Maria. Okay, hearing no other discussion items, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? With no nays and no abstentions, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Our next agenda item is agenda item C2, Development Plan Review, 471 High Street, change of use request for use code 55, retail trade up to 10,000 square feet, use code 44, office, personnel, and limited storage up to 10,000 square feet, No exterior modifications proposed to the building or site located at 471 High Street, AP 48-3, Lot 146, Stephen Sullivan, Inc., applicant NAR Venture Partners, LLC owner. I would like to make one statement on the agenda item that states there are no exterior modifications proposed. The applicant, as part of this process, has submitted proposed revisions to exterior elevations that I think would be viewed as an upgrade from an architectural standpoint to the appearance of the existing structure. I believe Mr. Sullivan is on with us. Jay?
Yes, good morning, Stephen.
Hi, good
There are
morning.
two other audience members. Are they affiliated with your with this application?
Yeah, the owner of the building and his attorney are on as well.
All right, they'll be coming in a second.
Good morning. Can you folks hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. My name is Jay Marinelli. I'm an attorney at Parnagan and Marinelli PC in Warwick, Rhode Island. I'm representing Stephen Lang, who is the owner of Narragansett NAR Ventures, and he is the unit owner of this particular unit that's looking for the usage change. I don't know if it's Steve. Steve, are you on as well?
Steve Lang or Sullivan?
Steve
I'm
Lang.
here. Steve Lang should be on too.
Can someone hear me? Am I in the meeting? Hello?
I
Yes,
can hear you.
My name is Stephen Lang, if everyone can hear me.
We can hear you, Stephen.
Okay, hello, my name is Stephen Lang. I'm the director of Narragansett Ventures, and I guess the owner of this parcel. I'm not unfamiliar with these proceedings. In my previous life for 10 years, I was the elected chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission in Fairfield, Connecticut. And for the last 15 years, I've been building high-end homes in Palm Beach, Florida. So I live in Narragansett. Lately, I have become very involved with the Audrain Car Museum in Newport and the Audrain Concours. I'm an avid collector of high-end antique cars. I purchased this property with a mind to move my office there and store 2 or 3 of my cars that would go into the Newport Concours every fall at the Audrain. Come here with great intentions and very clean hands. When I purchased the property, I looked around. I looked at the condo documents for the 3 buildings. Didn't understand quite why there was a condo, but I guess the charity wanted it that way and did that. There were no notices of violations. There didn't seem to be anything wrong, so I purchased the property. I'm going to make major investments in the property. It's kind of an eyesore coming down High Street and turning onto Church Street. I want to make it look like a much nicer building. I want to put my office there. I want to landscape down the side of Church Street so that people don't turn in to the, before the street ends, and just barely make it nice. And I'm kind of confused why I can't do that. I understand there's a condo association. It's a very limited and strange condo done by the charity. As of January 7th, I guess, based on my attorneys calling the town, I noticed a violation has gone out to one of the other buildings. This condo was set up by Welcome House, which I guess is a local charity, and it allowed them to put these 3 buildings together and make it work for them, and then they eventually sold them off. There's been no condo ever meeting. There is no active condo association. It's in name only. The condo docs are not actually well written. When the notice of violation went out on January 7th from the town of South Kingston, they didn't even notice the building, Unit 3 on, was it 313 Church Street? They still have Welcome House as part of the notification. So the guy that has the violation has never been even noticed after the violation a couple days ago. Whoever wrote the notification up did not put Daniel Pierce Builders, or whoever the owner of the property is, I think it might be his father, as part of the notice. So I called the gentleman. I refrained from calling him up to this point until the notification went out, because what do I tell him? I said, you're in violation, but he's going to tell me I never received a notification. So the notification went out. I sent it to him. He kind of flinched a little bit and gave me a shrug. But at this point, I don't know what I can do. I'm willing to spend an awful lot of money to improve what I think is an eyesore and make a really nice building. I'm willing to landscape all around the building so that it looks good 365 days a year. But I really have no ability to do anything to this gentleman behind me. I can encourage Steve Sullivan, and he's agreed to. He's the owner of the property at 477 beside me. That would be 2 of 3 votes in this kind of inept condo association to put him in violation of the condo documents, but there's nothing in the condo documents that can force him to do anything. So he's going to shrug again at me. So I'm kind of at a loss. I don't know what to do with the property. I purchased it in good faith, but now I can't improve it. I don't know what to do.
Well, Jay Marinelli here. One of the issues when I came, I was not involved with the initial submittals with respect to this use variance, but now that I have reviewed it, and I was the attorney who did all the title work, and I've worked with Steve over the last 10, 12 years on other projects and other things he's done. When we initially did the title exam on this property, there was no notice of violation that was issued. And looking at your notice of violation that went out, I believe it went out yesterday, the day before, and I appreciate that you sent that out. I do notice that you had reviewed this property in March. I don't know if there was a situation back in March where there was some question as to whether there was a requirement of a permit for this particular paving project. You allude to that perhaps in the notice of violation. If that's not the case, fine. However, the issue here is, and having been a former solicitor of a couple of towns and done this work myself for a while, typically we like to get these notices of violations out immediately. So my client buys this property in July. We do a title search, don't find anything on the property whatsoever with respect to notices of violations, and therefore we buy it. And now we find out after the fact, when my client wants to improve this property, he certainly does, and this is a pretty minor use change. It's certainly going to lessen the impact of this particular use for the property. It's going to, from a retail space, ostensibly, I don't know when it was ever used as one, but it's going from retail down to basically simple office space and maybe some storage. We're put in a tough situation, and now the town kind of wants us to act as your enforcement arm through, I guess, our condominium documents and bylaws. So I don't know if that's the case or what's going on, but we would like to see if we can move this thing forward and certainly follow what the town wants us to do. We'll certainly cooperate as much as we possibly can with respect to assisting with this permit. At the same time, we're really in a bind. We'd like to be able to move forward with our plans and start this process if the town will allow it. At the same time, we're a little bit upset that we were put in this situation in the first place. But for the town acting.
Jamie, this is Jay Parker. Jamie, it might behoove a very brief summary or outline to get Maria and Mary up to speed. They weren't here last month and they may not be aware of what the violation actually is that's being discussed.
Yes, hang on, Jay. I'm trying to go through some of the timelines. And again, Mr. Marnelli,
Yes,
your client purchased it in July of 2021?
yes, he did. And the issue was, I guess, the gentleman behind paved, I guess, put an extra 2,600. I don't know if this, what the square footage was, but I think he put in, it's in the notice of violation. He put in another 2,500 square feet of paving without pulling the appropriate permit. And that happened back in March. I guess I'm not sure if the building official went over, but somebody went over to inspect the property when this project was going on. I guess you guys told him at that time that there was a requirement of a permit, and we don't know what happened after that period of time, other than the fact that, you know, nothing was issued then. So I don't know if you guys have had continued discussions with him or what the status is. When my client and Mr. Sullivan petitioned for this use change, that's when this came up. And Steve, how long ago did you guys do the original petition? I'm not sure.
I guess it was 3 months ago.
3 months ago. Okay. And I think this is the third meeting we're having so far with
Yes.
technical. Okay. So that's kind of what I understand, at least from the course of events here, folks.
Again, I'm looking at an aerial photo from the spring of 2021 that shows no pavement on the site. So I'm just trying to look at a timeline between when your client acquired it, when the paving occurred, and when the town became aware of it. And again,
I will certify that when I went to look at the property to buy it, it was already paved. There were many trucks and cars parked there. This is Daniel Pierce Builders. This builder, his company is listed in South Kingston, so somebody in the town has got to be aware of him. He must do business in the town. He must take permits out in the town. He must go to code review meetings in the town. He must try to get certificate of occupancies for his work in the town. If the town wants to coerce him to deal with the runoff or take up the paving, the impervious surface, there are a variety of other ways they can coerce him without using me. I mean, he's doing business in this town as a builder.
Well, and I also,
as a former public official and a chair, you know that we can't coerce or strong arm a developer and withhold permits on a property that permit is not associated with. So
I wouldn't infer that, but you and I both know, as in the planning function, and you're indirectly using me right now to do that with him. You know, I mean, I don't have any control over him, yet I can't do my property. So, I mean, we look for mitigation in a variety of different ways as we look at projects, and we try to get the best possible end result. But all I'm saying is, if the town has an issue with him, there are other ways to talk to him about it.
right. So Stephen, just for clarity, the role of the technical review committee is to give advice and guidance to the planning board. And then those decisions are passed along to the zoning board. So if there's a legal matter with regards to the notice of violation on the property, because again, it's still one property that's been condoed, that could be a matter that is more germane to to a discussion at the planning board level or at the zoning board level. Although the technical review committee is conscious of the violation that exists, it may not preclude the TRC from at least making a recommendation on your proposed improvements to your segment of the parcel.
well, I think that's the Mr. Rabbit. I think that's the key here. Okay, and I agree with you. So the question, I guess, is whether this permit is something that's going to get in the way from us getting a positive review from your committee. And I think we do need to establish, at least for the record, that based on the notice of violation that was submitted, it appears that the town engineer division staff, someone from your town was out there in March of 2021 notifying these folks that were doing the project that they were paving. They increased the square footage in your notice of violation by 2,630 square feet. We purchased the property in July. I think we should at least, for the record, state that this project was done prior to our ownership, prior to a notice of violation being issued. And whether that's material with respect to a positive recommendation, we'll let you guys decide on that. And certainly if this can be moved forward to planning and zoning without there being a prejudice to the project, we would certainly welcome that. And we'll certainly assist with whatever, however you guys think we ought to pursue this, we will, but it's a little bit of a strange situation here.
Comments will be noted and they are part of the record. So if I can go through our TRC members, I'll start with Rich Bourbonnais, and then we'll go through John Chalk on the technical side.
So it was me that was out there. I was out there in March, and I approached the contractor at the time. By that point, it was already fully paved. I apologize that it was not issued in a timely way. It could have been issued 6 months ago, and I apologize for that. Just so you understand, though, normally it's not like we record these NOVs. Once in a while, we will record an NOV. If it's at a certain level, if we get no response at all, and in this case, I would suggest that this NOV would have never been recorded, and whether you would have found out about it or not, I don't know. The pavement is all new, and it wasn't even really clear how much additional pavement was made was put in until we received that plan from you guys showing what the paved area was, because we have not had it surveyed or anything like that. All I can go off of are existing aerial photos, and it doesn't show up in an aerial photo yet. It will next year, of course. But I do apologize that I did not go out in a timely way, and I understand the predicament that you're in. And that's really all I have to say. It's a shame, because I believe the solution is an easy one. I believe it's a swale along that edge of parking. It would be a it could be 5 or 8 feet wide in the length of that paved area. I think it would be a real small improvement. That would be my suggestion on it. But I'm not sure how it gets done. I'm not sure how it gets done at this point, how it happens, but something needs to happen. These areas, Peacedale, Mr. Lang, and Peacedale is in a severe storm. A big portion of Peacedale is underwater, and a lot of that comes from a lot of the paved surfaces that we have, all the way up the watershed, but all through this area as well. And it's a real problem. These additional pavements, although they seem insignificant, are important to get under wraps. We need to get some of these areas under wraps, or else it's just going to continue to get worse in that area. So that's all I have to add.
Okay. John Chalk.
So I guess what I'm like to say is, certainly the applicant, everything that we've seen to date is going to be a significant enhancement to the area. So, from that standpoint, I don't think we want to get in the way. This is a little different that it's one parcel. This is some of the problems we see with condominium projects, is that one property owner, and I say property, meaning a building property owner, is adversely affecting other people on that parcel. So that being said, and we went off the tax assessors database when we sent out that NOV. We still have the Welcome House as the owner of 313. I took note of it's Daniel Pierce. Now I don't know if he's a tenant to the Welcome House or our tax database just hasn't been updated as of yet, but we will research that some more and reach out to Mr. Pierce if he is in fact the owner of 313 and not the tenant. So I mean, as far as what the applicant's proposing for the former Welcome Mart, I have no problem with that. We just got to try to find a way to deal with the work that was done without permitting.
Thank you, John. Chris, on the fire side?
No, I don't have anything right now.
Thank you, Chris. Mary?
I have nothing right now.
And Maria?
It seems as though this applicant is willing to make the necessary corrections to this parcel to undo what has been done, to in turn improve the stormwater situation. From what I've seen, he doesn't intend to make any changes to the building in itself. I guess that the only issue will be going forward is how to manage this condo association, which really is not within our purview. Obviously, you would do well to try to either reorganize the association and come up with a new set of standards or what have you, but again, it doesn't seem like that's our role here. Am I missing anything, Jamie?
No, I don't think you're, Maria, since you weren't at the last board meeting, you made a statement, the applicant is proposing to make exterior changes to the building. Jay, I don't, if you can bring those up so that Maria can see those. So from its present format to more of a kind of train station barn.
Carriage house
Oh.
looking.
So I would say it's an upgrade to what's there today.
Definitely, but
Additional.
not changing the
landscaping.
footprint in any manner.
No.
And you are correct with respect to Maria. This is Jay Marinelli. You're correct. Yeah, I mean, obviously, condominium associations are forms of ownership, not use. And I get one of the issues we could take a look at is whether we dissolve the corporation, we dissolve this particular declaration. And looking at a zoning certificate that was issued way back in 2004 by Don Packer, it would seem that there were 3 separate units here at the time, and they still exist as 3 separate units. They wouldn't have been able to conduit at that time to create a 3-unit condominium without that use at the time, with 3 separate units sanctioned by the town. So I don't think there's been anything that's been done to this property with respect to additional square footage added to any of the buildings that would cause there to be a illegal non-conforming use created by the dissolution of the condominium. Statute would dictate that we cannot be penalized by the town for changing the kind of ownership if there is an existing legal non-conforming use that was grandfathered back prior to the time that the condominium association was formed. Now, I don't know for sure whether any additional building was done there. I don't think there was. I think we can probably check to see. The problem we have is, and again, Maria, I agree with you. The problem we have is in order for us to change the bylaws requires 100% vote with all 3 unit holders allowing for the dissolution of that, in which case the town would be reverting back to issuing a notice of violation against that particular unit owner And we would be separate parcels from them and have nothing to do with it. So I'm just bringing that up as a potential way to do this, to take care of the situation. I think that maybe creates more problems than what we currently have. So that said, I would like to know, I guess if you wanted to put the town engineer was mentioning a swale, what would that project entail? Where would it be? Is that something that would be taking place on the Mr. Pearson? Is that his name?
Pierce.
Pierce, yeah, would that be on his property solely, or would that be a swale that would be, where would that be located and what would that entail? Anyway, that's my comment with respect to legalities of what we're looking at in terms of the actual condominium association bylaws.
With regards to council's comments, I don't think we're at the point, I don't want to speak for Rich, but to know enough detail about size, location, outlet, and form of any drainage structure associated with that unpermitted parking area. The also aspect, I think you have some legal matters to address with that condo owner too, because if the parcel has a certain amount of impervious surface that's allowed, he may have taken all of yours.
Okay, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so one action by one condo owner may eliminate the ability of two other condos to ever modify their sites. So, including a paved area that was added on one of the other condos owner site without any permits that I'm aware of, the addition of a parking space, 2 parking spaces. So there have been some actions taken by at least 2 of the condo owners, potentially without permits, that affect impervious areas and lot coverage. So I think it will probably take additional conversations with council, but I think there's some discussion here that, at least from the technical review committee's side, that the application/project before them seems to have been well vetted with regards to design, and there potentially are no outstanding issues associated with the proposed improvements of the existing building on the corner of Church and High Street. Is that a fair summation? And I'll ask the TRC team to weigh in on that. And Jamie, I didn't mean to exclude you. So if you want to continue that conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say, because it's, no expansion to the existing footprint. It's a vast improvement architecturally to the structure, to allow them to move forward. And this is the early stages in, sending out the NOV and trying to form a discussion with Mr. Pierce. And my feeling is that shouldn't hold up Mr. Lang from moving forward with the change of use, and we can try and move forward with rectifying the, bioretention or drainage system with Mr. Pierce and the association as a whole moving forward.
John, Rich, are you comfortable with that?
So I don't know if Mr. Marinelli or Mr. Lang, so who, do you know for a fact that the 313 Church Street is not owned by the Welcome House, that it's not owned by the Habitat or the Welcome House, and it's owned by Mr. Pierce? Or do you know if Mr. Pierce is a tenant at this point?
So my understanding is that Welcome House is no longer associated with this property whatsoever. Okay, and that was my search when I bought the property. Mr. Pierce, either his father or father-in-law, bought the property, and I don't know whether he gave it to Daniel Pierce or Daniel Pierce is living in the house with his family, but Daniel Pierce is controlling the property. I know that. And obviously, if he was a tenant, I doubt he would have spent the money to pave that whole backyard, and he parks all his trucks there and everything else, you know. As an aside, you know, I want to make this parcel as attractive as possible because I own it. So I'm going to plant and shield my property from that property somewhat, you know, to just not be associated with the trucks that are parked there or the rundown house. There seems to be no improvement to the house or the lot for aesthetic purposes whatsoever. The only improvement was the pavement so he could park all his trucks there.
And
So I think-
I will,
Go ahead.
this is Jay Marinelli. I'm more than happy to, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think the Welcome House is still involved. I will take another look at the title abstract that I pulled back in late June, early July, and I can update that today. And I can just send you guys a quick, whoever wants to receive an email from me, I can send you a quick update as to the ownership of the property once I confirm that with my abstract.
And I think Jamie Rabbit's point is very well taken, that paving by that other property does adversely affect the condominium association as a whole. Is that something that the other condominium association members want to reach out to Mr. Pierce, whoever owns that property, and say, hey, listen, you're handcuffing us in the future if we need to do more, either building expansion or paving?
Yeah, with respect to the governance under the bylaws, Mr. Sullivan and Mr. Lang can certainly issue through the bylaws a notice that they're in violation pursuant to the bylaws with respect to not seeking a permit for an improvement. So, you know, the statute will cover us on that. The condominium statute will cover us on that. We do have the right to send out that notice. I think what Mr. Lang is saying is there's really been no operative governance of this particular condominium association since it was established. Now, condominium associations are established automatically once the declaration is done. So whether or not you have the governance in place, you do have the governance in place. It just hasn't been really followed over the years. That doesn't mean we can't use it now. So the answer is briefly, yes, we can issue something to assist the town and to assist us and let them know and let Mr. Pierce know that there's an issue, whoever the owner is, that there's an issue with what he did. That's something we can certainly do.
And we will send out a revised NOV to all parties once we get definitive answers as to who owns that 313 Church Street.
And Mr. Martinelli, if you can send that correspondence directly to me,
Sure, Mr. Rabbit, I'll do that.
I will see that it gets distributed.
This is Jay Parker. I was able to find a quitclaim deed. It's dated November 1st, 2021.
Okay,
Clifford,
yeah, I see that.
From Clifford Pierce to Daniel Pierce Builders. I can't get a hit on Clifford Pierce when I search the system the opposite way. So I don't know how Clifford Pierce came to be the owner.
I think he is the father-in-law of Daniel Pierce, and he bought the property for Daniel Pierce from Welcome House.
Right. And when I search Clifford Pierce, I don't get a hit on that sale from the Welcome House to Clifford Pierce, but I literally just did this a second ago, so I haven't looked at it, but that would explain.
Yeah, Mr. Parker, I'll run this today. I'll run this morning. Okay. And we'll do a track back and see what the history of conveyancing was for this particular piece. Okay. And then we'll know for sure. So.
Yeah, I just happened to have a search open for Welcome House from earlier, and I found a warranty deed from Welcome House to Clifford Pierce dated December 11th, 2020.
Excellent. Okay, good. So it looks like it's pretty clear that Welcome House is no longer involved. Thank you.
So with regards to this application, typically we would make an advisory recommendation to the planning board. Advisory recommendation is not binding on the board or binding on the zoning board. So do we need to discuss anymore, or is someone willing to put a motion together?
I would be
So-
willing to make that motion.
Mr. Rabbit, before we continue on, I just wanted to give a brief summary of the last TRC meeting and the items that were identified. There were 4
Thank you, Jeff.
items. First item was clarifying and the unpermitted activity on the site, particularly pavement, and address water quality with DPS. That has been discussed. Clarification of the site plan to reflect actual conditions. The third was to take a look at the proposed exterior improvements in relation to parking and circulation. I think specifically that was in regard to the proposed overhead door on the front. And the fourth and final item was, I believe the TRC was looking for a little more detail on the proposed landscaping, which would be alongside of Church Street.
I'm prepared to plant all along Church Street so that people cannot turn into that asphalt area in front of the building, which they seem to be doing. They shortcut the turn for some reason. I don't know whether somebody's impatient behind a car at the stop sign or whatever, but in the same respect, we'll plant something that will be year round there, but will be low enough so that it doesn't affect line of sight.
Is that something that you would be able to articulate in writing for the planning board at the time of review?
Yes, I'll have my landscape architect prepare that. And we'll plant behind the building also. Like I said, I want to screen along where Daniel Pierce owns, but I will wait to see how far we go with this. I will try to have another conversation with him, because if a swale is to be determined there, that may affect where we plant. But I want to plant the whole area. I want it to all be green. And in fact, I guess the Welcome Mart had a asphalt pad where they had a dumpster there. I'm going to pull that asphalt out and plant there. So everything that's not already asphalt right now will be addressed and planted. And I'll have a plan before we go to the planning board.
Excellent. That's what we'll want to see. We'll want to see size and species and location, and what you will be doing as far as drainage improvements.
Perfect, no problem.
So with regards to that, Maria, a motion would be to make an advisory recommendation to the planning board in a favorable manner, pending the review of a landscaping plan associated with the revitalization of the corner building.
Yes, correct.
Is that your-
And the one thing that I think we just needs to be vetted a little bit is the comment about the parking circulation and the three overhead doors. Those doors, can you see that as the architectural's up? Those doors, I believe, are right in front of parking spaces. And I believe that was where the comment last month came from.
Jay, they modified the site plan to exclude those 3 parking spaces. That's my
Hi,
understanding.
this is Stephen Sullivan. We also talked about,
Okay.
how I think Jamie Gorman brought up the fact that we could actually get rid of 2 of the parking spots if necessary, or if we're not required to have them because of, what was the reason, Jamie? I forget the specific.
Being commercial downtown
use.
zoned, they could reduce it by 50%. So
And so I can update this site, or have the engineer update the site plan to remove 2 of these spots. But in this current configuration, it doesn't block the 3-car garage. So,
My apologies. I got confused when I was just looking at this and I saw the striping in front, and I did not even pay attention to the fact that those parking spaces had been removed on the current plan. So I don't believe there's any action that's required to revise the plan. The plan looks like it's okay.
Okay, so Maria, was that a motion?
Yes, it was.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
John? Is there any discussion on the proposed motion? Hearing none, all that are in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Signify by saying nay. Hearing no opposition. Is there anyone who intends to abstain from voting? There are no abstentions. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone, for your patience.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, we have, moving down to agenda item D, TRC advisory review. Item 1, preliminary plan, comprehensive permit, major land development, Matunic Beach Road condominiums. Jay, we don't have anyone from Matunic in the audience?
No, we do not.
Okay, so I did receive correspondence as the planning director from the applicant's representative, Dupree Engineering. I also had a conversation with Doug DeSimone. Dupree Engineering, representing the applicant, requested that the TRC table any discussion and action on their application to give them sufficient time to sit down with staff as well as the planning board's consulting engineer, GZA, as it relates to reviewing drainage, sightline, and finalizing architectural review. So that brings everybody up to speed on that. I would need a motion to table to your February 9th meeting.
So move.
Anyone have any questions before I move on to that, John? Just hold a moment. All right, John,
Move to table.
thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Maria. Second by Maria. Is there any discussion on the motion to table? Hearing none, all signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none. Any abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously to table to the February 9th TRC meeting. And that brings us to agenda item E, adjournment. Do I hear a motion? Not everyone jump at once.
So move in the interest of.
Thank you, John. Do I hear a second to adjourn?
Second.
Thank you, Jamie Gorman. All those in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Hey, Jamie, on a separate note, can somebody, either you or maybe Jay, go down to tax assessor and find out what's going on with why that's outdated for 471 Main Street, High Street?
Yep,
Yeah,
we'll
John,
try and track that down.
I'll track that down, but I think it has to do with the timing. I think our records just don't update that quick.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
once we get that, we'll send out an updated NOV.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you, John. Have a good day, everyone.
See ya.